here. You see Emily on your screen somewhere. And Emily and I have known each other for more than a decade, and I'm so lucky to have her in the people I have crossed paths with and gotten to know and become friends with. And I'll give you a little bit of introduction to her, but it's mostly going to be her talking and taking Q&A, and I'll ask her a few questions. And the idea of this session, as with all our Professional Fridays, is to expose all of you to new ideas and what's the current thinking in newsrooms and in the world of hiring. And Emily is unusual compared to a lot of the Professional Fridays we've done in the past, where they're typically one organization, but we brought Emily in as our guide to kind of what's generally happening in the workplace and about her wonderful community that she has built. And we'd love the folks who are watching, if you have the ability to turn on your camera and ask her a question later, please do that. But otherwise, use the chat function, and please do introduce yourself. She'll be reading the chat. Tell us your name, what year you are, and if you have any questions. It'll really help her understand more of the audience. So please do that even as I'm speaking. Please start doing that. And I'll ask Professor Selvin to start by just putting in her ID in there so that she can, that'll help get everybody started. So just wanted to start by saying that Emily runs Find Spark, which is, to my mind, the most important online community for millennials. When she started talking about what she was going to build, I was so impressed, and then she actually did it. A lot of work, as my students know in our classes, is about how do you think about innovation and how do you think about the value of bringing people together. And she does this she has done this so beautifully. As you'll see, we'll show you her website and all of that. She's also, like a lot of entrepreneurs, has done more than one startup, and she has a second one that I'll also show you, and that's in a completely different space, but makes use of some of the same ideas of community and using social and digital in very smart ways. So everyone, please welcome Emily Miethner.
Hello, hi. Well, I'm very, very happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Suri, and you all are very in your network as a professor, someone you get access to all the time. Yeah, I was lucky to have met Suri in a continuing ed course during my first job out of college a while back, and learned a ton, and very happy to, stay connected over a decade, like you said. Wow. So one thing I did just hear from Suri and Barbara is that you all have a internship fair coming up next week, which is very exciting. And I shared that I actually landed my first job through my career center at a career fair. So they do work, and they are a really, really great resource. So I always recommend people take advantage of opportunities like those, programs like those, and also that folks really take advantage of people like Barbara and Sri to get to know them and make sure they get to know you, because one of the reasons I got that job at that particular career fair is because I connected a lot with the Career Center on my campus and told them a lot about my goals and done a lot of their workshops and programming. And so I actually got a personal introduction from the head of the Career Center to this particular employer that ended up hiring me, a few months later. So, building those sorts of relationships with people, on your campus who you are lucky to have access to as resources is very important and can be very fruitful. So yeah, just expanding a little bit on my background. So for over a decade, I've been doing community building, digital marketing for a variety of companies, but mainly Find Spark is what I've been building for the past 10 years or so. Yep, there's the website. And since then, I've also brought my digital marketing skills to a newer venture, which I believe is the one Sri was alluding to, which is called Travel Cat Shop, which is an e-commerce business where we sell cat products. So extremely different. I can look it up there. Extremely different than what I was doing with Find Spark. Oh, let's see. It's that first link there. You can click that.
The marketing is working very well, clearly.
Yeah. So yeah, I actually launched this with my husband, who's also an entrepreneur, about 4 years ago, and we've grown to be the #1 cat travel site in the world. It seems very I don't want to say random, it's very niche, but I've been using a lot of the skills and experience that I've had through building Find Spark and just doing digital marketing consulting throughout the years to build this e-commerce brand, which I'm super passionate about e-commerce now as well. It's newer for me, but it's such a huge growing industry, especially with the pandemic, really pushing e-commerce to the next level very, very quickly, with so many companies having to, break into e-commerce and start e-commerce sites and that sort of thing. So those are the two things that I spend the most time on. And then I am also an adjunct professor at FIT. I teach a social media class, and I've also been teaching a class called The Business of Being an Artist at School of Visual Arts for since 2014 as well. So really passionate about careers and social media and the combination of the two, and really using relationship building and building a strong online presence to grow in your career and to really sort of fast track your career and help you to reach your goals more quickly, and to really stand out within your career and the job hunt.
Wow, thank you. That's fantastic. And we can go so many strands of conversation that we can pick up here, but we want to start with this idea of the work that you have learned. How does it apply in journalism and media jobs in particular? And then I'd like to ask you about some specific tips for our internship attendees, which are most of these students will be there. So tell us about that, please.
Sure. Well, I would say with competitive, I've always really focused our resources through Find Spark on more creative industries. So like media, communications, and journalism, which are all very competitive fields, right? Like extremely competitive, especially if you want to work at one of the larger publications. And so, I think one of the biggest factors in having success is really making sure that you're building relationships and continuously putting yourself out there online and offline to build those relationships and to show people your work. Because, most people, when they're applying for roles, are just applying online, and then that's it. And so really what's going to set you apart is that when you apply for roles, first of all, that you put a lot of effort into the application materials. One of my biggest tips is to spend more time on fewer applications. A lot of people take this spray and pray approach. I'm going to send the same resume out to dozens or 100 employers and hope that somebody takes me. That is, first of all, this is a very exhausting strategy, and it's not going to be as effective as narrowing down internship and job opportunities to ones that you're extremely interested in and that you feel that you are a strong fit for, and really putting a lot of extra time, hours really, into those materials, between creating a really strong customized resume, a really strong cover letter, which, for journalism, the cover letter and the resume mean so much because you're applying for writing jobs, right? And so you can't skimp on those things. And those are just the basics. And then beyond that, putting in the time and effort to really research companies, people at those companies, really get an understanding of the roles, the role that you're applying for. That's going to help you really craft strong materials and also help you come up with other ideas of things that you could do or submit within your materials, or as you try to network with people at that company. What can you do to show them you're putting in extra effort? So for instance, writing just pieces on your own, or picking out pieces from your previous portfolio of work that is extremely relevant, or going to events that are hosted by the publication, doing extra things beyond just applying online and submitting strong materials is really important within this field, again, because there's just so much competition.
Thank you. That's so helpful. What have you found in the world of the in-person fairs that you haven't done a lot recently, as you said, but what should they be keeping in mind?
Yeah, well, I'm sure that for many folks, the networking in person is now a slow build back to, getting used to being in person again. So I would say that even prior to COVID and having, say, a lack of experience, I always like to start by saying, networking can be a little awkward. You're meeting strangers, you're meeting people in big group settings, and it's a little awkward for everyone. So I just say that to give a sense of it's okay. We're all in the same boat. Most people get a little nervous around networking and meeting new people, and that's totally okay. And you shouldn't feel strange or bad about, having a little nervousness around networking. And similar, but how can you stand out, say, at an in-person event? Very similar to what I was just talking about in terms of, applying online, is really doing your research ahead of the event. Who's going to be there? Who are the reps that are going to be there? What are the current openings? And what can you learn about the companies before you get there? The last thing you want to do is go up to an employer at an event and say, hi, my elevator pitch. What are your openings? What jobs do you have for me? What can you tell me about your company? That's the easiest way to turn off an employer. They're going to be impressed if you can go up to them and say, I'm really interested in this specific role, and then customizing your pitch, your verbal pitch, your elevator pitch to that role. And I know many young people are oftentimes they have multiple interests, right? So you have, say within journalism, maybe there are certain beats that you're interested in, or there's certain types of journalism that you're more interested in than others. It's okay to have multiple interests. If you really want to stand out, again, come to the career fair with custom materials for the employers that you care the most about. I've had people come to, in the past, Find Spark, my company, has hosted large career fair style of events. And we've had people who will come with folders for particular employers, and the folder, will have the employer name on it, right? And the folder will have custom materials with the cover letter that says, the New York Times or whatever the publication is. So those types of things are very impressive because, recruiters are people, and it's very obvious to them when you've put in the extra effort or you haven't. So, those same sort of rules apply of doing your research, having customized materials, having questions to ask. And when it comes to asking smart questions at career fair style of events, and also at actual interviews and networking situations, informational interviews, the key to asking good questions is you want to ask questions that cannot be answered by the internet. It cannot be answered by a Google search, because if it can be, then that's a waste of time, for that person. And you don't want to waste someone's time. If you have the opportunity to meet with someone face to face or virtually like this, in real time, you want to get the most out of that opportunity. So asking questions about certain experiences and things that you can't just find from their LinkedIn or company career page, right? Can you give an example of what success would look like in this role, at the end of the internship, or at the end of the job, or at the first month mark? Or one interesting question is, what do most people struggle with in the beginning of this role? Asking a potential employer, what do people struggle with at the beginning, or what do they find most challenging about the role? That's a great question, because whatever they say, you can then respond and say, well, I'd actually really be good at handling that because XYZ, right? So if they say, oh, well, it's very fast paced, and when you get hired, you have to learn our whole system of XYZ, like say our CMS platform, and it's not a common one. So people struggle with that. Then your response can be, oh, well, I've actually had past roles where I had to learn a new CMS, within a short period. You can give some sort of example. Maybe it's not that specific, but, find some sort of transferable skill.
Yeah. So first of all, so many great tips already. And this is why I want everybody who's watching now to text their friends if we're still live and tell them to join us or watch the recording. But one of the headlines is employers are people too, right? Like recruiters are people too. And therefore take it seriously and also know that they'll have met 7, 8, 10, 12, 20 people that day. And therefore they're also they want that spark in you to pep them up a little bit, right? Like that's one thing that I don't think people realize. And so I think that's really important. We're seeing some great introductions on the side, and I'm sure Emily will take a glance and be able to riff off some of that as well. And really preparing for each interview, I think, is a good idea. Professor Selvin can tell us how much information our students will have in advance. A little, a lot, none. If you can just tell us that, that would be helpful.
Yeah, so our the employers who are coming to this particular internship fair are not big employers. They're mostly small local Long Island employers. So it's not like they have a website that lists, 20 opportunities, 20 jobs that are open right now, like a big company would. So that I think is excellent, but there's a way to adapt your advice, which is to understand the company. I mean, there's plenty that you can learn from looking at their website, looking at I sent around the names of all the people who are coming and the links to their websites. You can look up the individuals on LinkedIn and find out where they've been before. You can ask them about how they move from one place to another. If there's something in their history that interests you. Some of them are, veterans, been in the business for 30 years, 40 years. Some of them are young, just starting out, or, anywhere in between. So there are a lot of questions you can ask based on their LinkedIn, and you can certainly ask about their website, about their publication. You should know what the lead stories are in the current iteration of the website just that morning. You should have looked at it before, but look at it in the morning and say, oh, I see you just posted XYZ. That kind of thing.
That's such great advice.
Look at their Twitter feeds, you can do this as much. There won't be I'm interested in this particular job necessarily, but you can definitely have things that you can learn about and ask. You don't want to ask them like, so what is Discover Long Island?
Yeah, right.
You really need to know.
And I would also add that even though I was saying that, their eyes might be glazing over after a long day, in this particular case, they have made the effort in the middle of a pandemic to come to you. They want to meet you. They want to hear from you. So meet them at that, match them at their enthusiasm and they've made the biggest gift of all by coming and taking time out of their day. And so we should all be there, like ready with bells on, as they say, to make that work. I also like the idea of, trying to customize things. That's not necessarily possible for everybody, but the technology has become so much easier, even from where Emily started, or when Professor Selvin and I were organizing job fairs, right? The students had no access to any information about, unless there was a reporter coming whose byline was on the web, you would have no information about who that is. So that's changed, and LinkedIn has a lot to do that. And a reminder to everybody, please up your LinkedIn game, please update everything and make sure it's there. So back to Emily. Can you talk a little bit?
Just to go off of one thing you mentioned too, right, these people are taking the time out of their day to come. They want to hear from you. And I do think a lot of folks will oftentimes make the mistake of, oh, well, if that employer or person I met is interested in me, then I'll wait to hear from them. And that is a big mistake. One of the best things that you need to do after an internship event or any networking event is you should follow up with everybody you meet. And you should take the time, make sure you get their emails. I'm assuming they'll probably have cards with their contact information, but, make sure you get them and send everybody a nice follow-up note. And take the time to send a quick, simple, nice follow-up note, even to companies that you might not be interested in, at the very moment, right? If you met someone, if you shook or elbow bumped someone at this event, they should be getting a follow-up message from you saying that it was great to connect. If you can add one line about something you mentioned, And then you can attach your resume, your website, include a link to your LinkedIn and the body of the email. But yeah, big mistake people make thinking, oh, if they want to connect with me, if they want to hire me, they'll come to me. That's a bad attitude. You really need to take that proactive approach to create those connections. And especially at big companies or small companies, you really just never know when an opportunity will arise. And so even just having that person's email in your inbox and them having your email and name, in the inbox, you could get opportunities years down the line. I know it's hard to think that far in advance sometimes, but that type of follow-up and adding everybody to your LinkedIn after the event with a note that says, thank you. So, it was great meeting you at the event, at the Stony Brook internship fair, so that they have that message and they know that that's where they met you. All of this, that follow-up is, just as important as the actual connection that happens.
Yeah, so thank you. So such important advice for all of you. And students, please get your questions ready. We have about 20 minutes or so left with Emily. One of the things that I know people struggle with, Emily, is having an idea of what they want to do. And so when you have so many different companies that they're faced with, we're not just talking about this particular internship fair, but you're going to be dealing with this. So how do you tell folks that, to the importance of going to different places, meeting different people? You alluded to that every meeting is valuable, is what I say. And it may, by the way, not even be turn out valuable for you, but maybe your buddy is somebody who should meet, but you could be that intermediary who makes that connection, right? So there's so many different reasons to not be dismissive of anybody you can meet. And by the way, I also talk about practicing your pitch. So even if it's somebody you won't work for ever, just talking helps kind of break that ice. So talk about that a little bit, please.
Sure. Well, when it comes to, practice with your pitch and talking and networking is so important. And I always share with my students, most people are more afraid of public speaking than they are of death. Like public speaking is the number one fear in the US. And I know public speaking is different from meeting a person at a networking event, but it can feel similarly intimidating to people. And so,
can I just tell you a Seinfeld joke on this, which is that he says exactly what you said. It's that more people are at a funeral, more people would rather be in the coffin than giving the eulogy, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yes. But, and then at the same time, I think that people forget, you don't get better at anything without practice, right? You wouldn't expect to get better at an instrument or a sport if you don't practice. And the same goes for communicating with strangers or in front of any size group. And so it's really great to build yourself up, to take, to push yourself out of your comfort zone, to find a variety of different ways that you can practice your pitch, practice speaking in different environments. So, in terms of finding your path, finding your interests, well, first of all, when you're just starting out, you have time, right? You have time to explore and discover. And sometimes part of that discovery will be discovering what you don't want and the type of environment you don't want. You could think whatever that first job is when you get it, that's going to be the one, or that's going to be the type of environment you think you wanted. And then, a big part of the career journey is being honest with yourself and being honest with the type of, career and life that you want, and being honest with understanding what it's going to take to reach certain goals. And actually one of my favorite Find Spark interviews that I ever got to do was with a gentleman named Greg Giangrande. And at the time he was, So at the time he was the chief human resource officer at Time Inc., huge company. And one of the reasons I loved his story is, and something he shared, so he thought he wanted to be in broadcast journalism. And not only that, when he was coming right out of school, he thought, or he said, I want to be in broadcast journalism, but I'm only going to be happy if I can be like Katie Couric. Like I want to be the number one like broadcaster, right? Like if I'm going to do this, that's what I want to be, which is, in politics, it's kind of equivalent to being like, I want to be president if I'm going to be in politics, right? But then as he, started to network and learn more about what does it take to become Katie Couric, he realized that, well, if I want to be Katie Couric, I'm going to have to spend many years in tiny markets in crappy cities that I don't want to live in or be a part of, to like ultimately, get up to be in like New York, to be in the New York market. Right. And that's, a summarization of, what it takes to get to that level. But he basically accepted the fact that he's like, you know what, I want this goal. I want to be the Katie Couric, but I actually don't want to do the stuff that it would takes to be the Katie Couric. So you know what? That's actually not what I want. and I think that's okay. And it's an important part of the journey. And how do you understand, what it takes to reach the goal? Well, you get to understand that by talking to people, by going to networking events, by reaching out to people you admire in the industry to learn more about sort of what it takes to get to certain places. And so that's just, it's really important. And I really just like to emphasize that it's okay to change your goals based on your learnings. I mean, I at one point wanted to be in the in the music industry, and I thought that I would go and work at an indie label. I would do graphic design. I love music. I love small independent musicians and bands. And then I did 2 internships at 2 record labels in Brooklyn one year. I always joke that that's the coolest I will ever have been in my life, because I was, working in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. And then I found out how much money these people made in the music industry, working at a record label. And it was like $20,000 a year. I mean, that was in 2010, maybe now it's 25 or 30. But basically I was like, you know what, this is cool, but it's not cool enough for me to only be able to live on this salary by living in an apartment with like 5 people, so, and that's okay. Like, you learn these things by talking to people. And I do feel like that, especially in more competitive industries, like again, journalism or communication, there is a sort of like glorification of, overworking, or, people can get set on certain goals, but then the experience is not for everybody. So I think it's just important to recognize that, it's okay to change your mind. It's okay to change your goals or your directions, and you're going to become a strong communicator. Like, you are all strong communicators, I'm sure already, and writers. And that is going to serve you in like so many different types of jobs. So, as you're early on, I would just say, keep an open mind, and don't, be hard on yourself for wanting to change what you want to do at any point.
Yeah, brilliant advice. So let's move to the lightning round. And we have various people here. So students, please jump in. I have more lightning questions, but I know Professor Selvin might have questions, or students as well. This is such a great opportunity for you to learn from Emily, who has, unlike a lot of other people, she built her business from scratch. She could have been a famous record producer now, but here she is. She's also, the other way to calculate things is she's helped thousands of people instead of just like doing her business or that. So that is part of how how it can be an opportunity for folks. So please jump in with a question. You can drop it in the chat. And Cindy said thank you. She has to head out. So thanks for joining us, Cindy. And what's while we're waiting, while students are still shy, I think, what are some things you learned in the Find Spark business that have helped you with the cat travel business?
Yeah.
And by the way, is there a competing dog travel business? Because I have 2 dogs in my life at the second.
I know. Well, so one of the reasons we've been so successful is because we're purely focused on cats. So, yes, but you can put small dogs in some of our backpacks and products. One thing that I have transferred over from building Find Spark to building this company is there was not a roadmap that I was following with either. And it was really, it's been building from scratch for both. So that's something that I have learned about myself over time, is that I really like building things from scratch. Like I'm the type of person that would not be happy in a role that they said, here's what you need to do. Here's what you need to do every day. Here's the guidelines. Here's the check boxes. Like I've never had that type of job, and I don't think I would be good at it or enjoy it. And so I really, enjoy building things from scratch. I really enjoy building relationships with people. So with Find Spark, it's, college students and employers and people within the higher ed industry. And with Travel Cat, it's, cat people. It's, people who are exploring this new world of taking your cat outside and walking them and putting them in their backpacks. And yeah, so I enjoy that side of thing, and connecting people within the communities is exciting. So we started to do virtual events for Travel Cat. So in the same way we did them for, we do them for Find Spark. I do see a question about what to wear for an internship fair, how dressy to be. So I'm sure, Barbara, you have some thoughts on this, but, I would say, minimum business casual. Journalism and media is a little bit more casual than, say, like accounting and, finance, but I feel like it's always better to be more dressed up than it is to dress down at an event. And I always also say, especially as college students, that doesn't mean you have to be wearing expensive clothes, but just nice clothes. And I also always really recommend that you pick out your outfit a few days in advance, or at least the night before, and have it all set out, have it ready to go, because the last thing you want at a networking event is to feel self-conscious, to feel like the shirt you're wearing doesn't fit, or it's wrinkly, or it's not the color that you feel best in. I think it's great to have, I like to call them power outfits, just outfits where you feel super confident. You're not even thinking about it because you just know you look good, because that will make a difference in how you come across and making that first impression. Like people can, sort of feel and sense that. So making sure like your clothes fit, you feel good about them, they're clean, and yeah, it's an unfortunate thing that people care about looks, but people care about looks. So you want to make sure you're presenting yourself in a clean, great, presentable way. I don't know, Barbara, if you have other thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with everything you're saying. I think I don't know if this is so much now, but sometimes in the past, students used to come like with really high heels and sometimes tight clothes. And I don't think that's a good look for an internship fair. I think you should, you're not going to a club. Don't wear club clothes. If, I don't know if students these days, after 2 years of pandemic, have gone to clubs, but I think you know what I mean.
More conservative, more.
Yeah, just but comfortable, relaxed,
yeah.
and the shoes, right? Do you really want to wear stilettos and walk around? No, I wouldn't think so. I mean, but that's me. I'm not a stiletto person. So yeah, I think be comfortable, be neat. I think it's fine to wear jeans as long as they're nice, nice looking jeans, not ripped jeans. You just want to be presentable. For college students, I think a sharp pair of sneakers is fine. You don't have to wear dress shoes. You can be who you are. You want to be comfortable. That's the most important thing. And you want to look nice.
It's always fun too at a networking event to have a statement piece or something that is a little bit fun or unique, whether it's like a cool tie or a bow tie or a nice blazer, or like a statement necklace, because that might help people remember you a little bit more, because again, these people will be meeting dozens of folks, throughout the day, and they're going to go back with their colleagues and think like, oh, who is that young woman with, she had green glasses. I remember, you know what I mean? Like it is just something helpful, because again, we're all humans. If you give people something a little bit interesting to sort of latch onto and remember you, that can be helpful as well.
Yeah, just making some notes here.
So just
I
in terms
think
of, yeah, sorry.
I was just going to say, and similarly in your resume, if you have, you know, something, a really unusual skill, make sure that's front and center and make sure you point it out. Like if I just had a student come in the other day who speaks Ukrainian, Russian, and English. That's got to be right at the top. That's got to be, you know, super, you want to be that person. Or if you're a double major in physics and journalism, we don't get a lot of those. So you want that. Oh, that, yeah.
But hey,
something
we have
missing.
urban psychology and journalism. I see that.
Yeah, there we go.
That's good. Amaya has a question.
Hello.
Hi.
Sorry. Okay. So I had a question about like the application process, like you were talking about before. I've heard some people say, if you really know you want to work at a specific company, apply for any job that you qualify for and like try to work your way up. And I know you just mentioned like refining your resume for a particular goal. So how do you feel about that idea?
Applying for a role that maybe is not your ideal role, but it's at your ideal company. Yeah. So, and everybody's different, right? Some people care more about, I want to work at this particular company, like, or industry. I'll adjust and try to figure out once I get in there how to move around, versus other people might say, I don't care what company it is, I just want to do this. You know, so, you know, if you're going to take the first approach, like you mentioned, there's, you know, a company you really want to work for, but they don't have any openings at the time that are exactly what you want to do, but there's a role that you think that you can do. You know, one, you need to tweak your resume for that role, right? Because if it's, say, more of an admin job than a journalism job, right? If your resume clearly looks like someone who just wants a journalism job, they might be like, well, this person's not going to be happy here, or this person's like overqualified, right? So you have to make adjustments. And I will just say that, you know, every company is different. And obviously we've all heard lots of stories of people, you know, working their way up from the mailroom, you know, to get to VP or whatever. But I would say, before you try that, really research to see if at that company, or if other people have done what you're trying to do. Because there are a lot of companies, so here's a good example. Like, there's a lot of companies where maybe they have a customer service role, but it's a big company and they have marketing roles as well, right? And so somebody might think, you know, I can't get into these marketing roles right now, but I'll take a customer service job and then I'll figure out how to get into a marketing role. But a lot of companies, like, they don't want that. There's certain companies where they're like, no, I want someone who's going to be happy in customer service. And we want to hire people where that's what they want to do. And they're going to stay and grow into customer service. Right. And some companies are pretty clear about that, or you'll find that out in the interview process, versus there are definitely plenty of companies. Like, so for instance, we worked with a company called Blue Apron, which you guys know, like the meal planning kit. And that's who I'm thinking of for that. Like, they wanted customer service people who'd be happy there, and they did not have a path from like one to the other. Versus we worked with another company called Industrious. They're a sort of a shared office space company. They wanted to work with us to actually show off and emphasize that they do let people go from one role to the next, and that they're very much about taking people with non-traditional skills or alternative skill sets and letting them, you know, grow into different roles and grow within the company. So you just want to be careful, because you don't want to get stuck in a role and not be able to find a path, right? Or maybe that happens and then you just have to quit and get another job. But I do think there are ways to try to find that out by doing, you know, online research, or just talking to people in the industry or networking with people at the company to see how possible that is. Because sometimes it is, but sometimes companies don't want to do that, or don't, you know, so you got to put some time in. Great question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great question. We have just a few minutes left. So anybody else have a question or comment for Emily?
Can you tell us a little bit about how you work with companies? You know, I see on your website that you mentioned HBO and NBCU, like maybe, and Greg. tell us maybe a little bit about how you work with some of these media companies, or what does that mean that you work with them?
And
Yeah,
also,
yeah.
if you can also just say, if you're doing any hiring yourself, like is Find Spark in like a hiring mode or internship mode or anything? Because you might be inspiring someone here who says, oh, well, I forget all those people. I don't work for Emily.
Sure, sure. Well, Find Spark is not
I would like
hiring.
to do that, by the way. Do you have a job for me? I'd like to come back.
No, Find Spark is not hiring at the exact moment. But yeah, so the ways that Find Spark works with companies. So one, we have a really curated job board that focuses on, entry level creative roles across, media, communications, digital marketing, that sort of thing. So the newsletter goes out a few times a month. So that's an easy resource to take advantage of and to discover new companies. And then in terms of how we work with companies is we create programs prior in person and digital, but now we're focusing on digital programs to connect employers with our community members. So for instance, with NBCU, we've done programs in the past where we did a event that was focused on people interested in sales and marketing careers to connect them to people at NBC, in sales and marketing careers to learn more about what the paths are like, to network with other people who are there. And so now we do similar things, but virtually. So we create a lot of, and all of our programs are free for folks to attend at this point with all of our virtual events. So we'll work with employers to create programs like panels and mentorship events, speed networking, and sometimes programs that are bigger than that as well, and like a bit more longer term, to just give access to our community members to people who work at that company, whether it's recruiters or folks who are currently working within certain roles. And a lot of times our virtual events, if you see one, RSVP, because we record all of them at this point. So if you can't be there in person, if you sign up, you can get the recording. And those types of programs are really great, a great way to learn about industries, to learn about companies, and also to just gain more insight into things that you could talk about if you ever met people, at that company. And that's something I would say to, again, to always look for opportunities. If you have target companies, on your list, or you're trying to learn more about certain companies or industries, look for events that you can attend where you can hear, you can hear from people who work there and from recruiters and get a bit more of a sense of like the company culture and the inner workings. Because then when you apply for jobs or you reach out for informational interviews, if you're able to say, I actually heard I heard a recruiter from the New York Times on a Find Spark panel, like he was really great. So that inspired me to reach out, or maybe kind of ask something off of that. So getting this sort of extra information sort of behind the scenes can be really helpful when you're trying to like network in and show that you've put an extra effort to learn more about the companies.
And then I think it's always really great to, follow up later. And this goes back to something I thought about when you were talking about internship fairs and following up with people you meet at internship fairs. 3 years from now, you can say, hey, I met you at the Stony Brook internship fair in, the fall of 2021. If you've written to them and followed up, you have a better chance of them remembering you because you followed up with them than if they just met you that one day and that was it.
Yep, absolutely.
And the same with the events that you have, I saw you at this event and I really liked what you said, and I'm interested, in your company, really appreciate the opportunity to learn from you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, last couple of minutes. Anyone else have a question or a comment?
And I'll, Suri, you can feel free to, I'll just put my email in the chat there. And if, you have anybody following up who was here or who watches the recording, always happy to connect via email and certainly via LinkedIn. So feel free to share those links in the email for anyone either here or after the recording's out.
Thank you. And everyone, please, of course, follow her on social. And let's play a little, role play here. I'm writing to you right after this. What are the things that I should be including in Dear Emily, what should I be saying?
Sure. Well, you can include one of your favorite tips that I shared. It's always nice practice to kind of say what resonated with you the most when you're following up. because it shows that, you were really listening. And also just as a person taking the time to share tips, it's just nice to see, oh, that's what stood out to the person. That's helpful for me to know as I do things like this in the future. And you're welcome to share, your LinkedIn or your portfolio or your resume. Let me know what type of roles you might be interested in the future. And then you'll just be in my inbox. So if I happen to hear about things in the future, I can say, oh, this wonderful person from Sri's event, I'll forward their information on. And definitely connect with me on LinkedIn and just send a note that says, you were at this event. And so that way we're connected on LinkedIn and can stay connected there.
That's so important. Thank you for that. I will say that it can be intimidating for students like this when you make such a generous offer. They'll say, well, everybody's going to do that. No one, she's not serious. Both things, right? Like she's not serious, and everybody who's listening to this recording is going to inundate you with things. And as you know, and I know, that's not what happens, right?
No one does.
And an example of that is that I was hosting an event at grad school, and the recruiter from an editor from Newsday came and in front of 200 graduate school journalism students said, here's my email address. I'm always looking for freelance story ideas. Please pitch me. And so I followed up with her 8-9 weeks later, and I said, how many people responded? One person. And she ended up hiring that person later, and they became good buddies and all of that, right? Like, so don't imagine that even in this group of 10 people that 9 are going to write. We'd be shocked if 2 would in previous times, but now that we've emphasized this with all of you, we hope you will in fact follow up and do all that good stuff.
And that's good probably practice. An accurate ratio of like 200 to 1, and that's why all of this talk is really about doing that extra step, that persistence, that following up, because it's an ironic thing, because it's like all you have to do is do that simple follow up as a way to stand out, but no one does it. But that's why you can stand out if you do it, because really no one does it.
Yeah, and believe in yourself, and believe in, that people want to help you. That's the other thing. I think a lot of us, because of the way the world is, like we think people aren't genuine and want to help. This job fair the internship fair that Professor Selwyn's organizing, they will absolutely, those people want to help, and they're there. Emily wants to help. Believe that people want to help you, that there are good people is another message that I like to have, because we know there are also people who are not good, but when we put those people in front of you, by the way, students, every speaker who comes to any class, do what she said, not just in a job setting, any chance you can get, just follow up, write a note. It's just good practice, and you have nothing to lose, like absolutely nothing.
I've always thought a good technique that I learned from Aisha Al-Muslim, who is now in charge of recruiting at the Wall Street Journal.
Oh, yeah.
But she was in a high school journalism class that I taught, I think it was 2003. And she created a BCC group of not every person that ever spoke to her at class, but everybody that she connected with on a deeper level, at job fairs. She was involved in a couple in NAHJ and NABJ, people that she connected with at conventions, professors that she had a relationship with, other people along the way. And every few months she would send out an email, hi, it's Aisha Al-Muslim with an update. And she would talk about what she'd been doing. And when she was writing for her college paper, she would include links, appreciate if you click on them. But she wasn't like trying to start a whole big conversation. She was just like keeping her name in the inbox, and over the years, this was something I just thought was genius. And I have told hundreds of students about this. And I think maybe two have actually followed up and done it and said, oh yeah, that thing you talked about, I'm doing it now. So
right. Yeah,
you can lead a horse to water.
Yeah. But I know we have some great students here. All of them are great, and they're all going to be writing to you and being in touch. I really want to thank Emily for her time, and let's all applaud her. And
thank you.
Thank you. And can I take a screenshot of all of us? So
yes, please do.
If you can turn on your camera, Maya, that'd be great. Or others too, if you're not comfortable doing that. But it'd be nice to have everybody there. Thank you. Look at that. People show up. Look at that. They're just appearing like magic. And if you're not comfortable, that's also fine. I know Melanie's having some computer issues. So, all right, everybody, look at your lens. Look at the lens, not at the screen. And smiling. Ready? 1, 2, 3. All right, let me see if I got it. If our eyes are open. Oh my goodness, everybody's eyes are open. That's shocking. Okay. Thank you. We have another 60 seconds. Anybody want to say anything to Emily apart from thank you?
I took my own screenshot too.
Okay, good. Good. All right. So thank you, Emily, and we'll connect. We have lots of things to catch up about. So, and
Yeah.
good luck with everything. We're
Thank
so
you.
proud of
Thank you so much for having me. Looking forward to staying in touch, and great to meet you, Barbara. And I'm so happy to have spent some time with you guys. So
Yeah,
thank
thanks so much, Emily. This is great.
Thank
And
you.
to the students, if you can just stay for 1 second, Emily, we'll let you go.
Okay, thank you.
You
Bye,
know,
everyone.
we'd love your feedback about these kinds of sessions and what you'd like to see. We're going to have another one on November 19th, and then with the whole spring semester, we're going to do these. So, by the way, just notice that women show up. Men think they don't need the help, right? Like that's one of the lessons here, I think. So please, everybody, tell your friends. You saw how useful that was. And you should know that I met her when she was maybe 2 years older than some of you, or 3 years, and look at what she's been able to do. And it's all about the hard work she put in, the experience, the knowledge, but also her personality. You saw how genuine she is, and that's exactly how she was at 22, and now look where she is, right? Like, so it's a beautiful thing to see, and that's what makes it valuable for professors like us to see you all do so well. We want you to use us and use our experience as much as possible so that you can succeed. Anything else, Barbara?
Set up those BCC groups.
Yeah, exactly. It'll last you a lifetime.
Yeah. You know, it's just, it's not intrusive. People don't have to do anything. They just, you just show up. And then also it's a good idea to include your picture. So like if somebody met you at a big setting, like an internship fair, they say, oh yeah, her.
Yeah.
That's who it was.
Yeah.